You know, some companies work in the background for years, almost in the shadows, and then bam, they burst into the spotlight. Right now, that company is Palantir. And the entire conversation, all the hype, all the debate, really just boils down to one massive, eye-popping number.
And there it is, just over $1 billion. This is the figure from Palantir's latest earnings report that just lit up the market and has pretty much every investor talking. But why? Why is this specific number such a huge deal?
Well, for Palantir, this is way more than just another number on a balance sheet. It's a breakthrough. I mean, think about it. After 22 years of grinding it out, a lot of that time on secretive government contracts, the company has finally crossed the billion-dollar revenue mark in a single quarter. That's a milestone that could signal a fundamental shift in their whole story.
So let's dig into what's driving all this optimism. To really get the bull case, you have to look at the quarter that fueled this fire. And the performance? Well, it wasn't just good. It was an absolute blowout.
And that billion-dollar headline? It's backed by some seriously incredible strength across the board. You've got revenue growth at an impressive 48%, but then look at the US growth, a staggering 68%. And total contract value, which is a great indicator of future revenue, just exploded by 140%. They aren't just selling more, they're getting way more profitable. Operating income surged 156%. This is pretty much the textbook picture of a company hitting a major inflection point.
Now, that kind of performance, it definitely doesn't go unnoticed. It attracts attention, and more specifically, it attracts a certain kind of investor. So you got to ask the question, who else is buying in? Where is the big money flowing? Turns out a huge portion of it, nearly 60% of Palantir, is owned by large institutions. We're talking about massive pension funds, huge asset managers, hedge funds, the works. That's usually seen as a major vote of confidence from the so-called smart money that believes in the company's future. So who exactly are we talking about here? Yeah, these are the heavyweights of the investment world. Vanguard and BlackRock, I mean, come on, they're the two largest asset managers on the planet, and together they own almost 18% of the whole company. When you see a roster like this, it tells you that a big chunk of the market is betting on Palantir for the long haul. But if you start to look a little closer, the story gets a bit more complicated. And this is where that nice, clear picture starts to get a little murky. See, on one hand, you have major players like the Swiss National Bank adding more shares. But on the other hand, you have key company insiders, the people who know the business from the inside out, like the CTO and the chief legal officer, and they're selling off shares. That is a deeply conflicting signal. So what gives? Is it just routine profit-taking, or is it a warning sign? This tension leads us right to the single biggest risk for any investor looking at this stock. Because while that incredible performance is, without a doubt, impressive, it has also pushed the stock price to some pretty dizzying heights. And this brings us squarely to the bear case, which really revolves around one central, nagging question. This is it. This is the question that probably keeps potential investors up at night. The growth is undeniable, right? But has the market just gotten way ahead of itself? Is the price you have to pay today just too high, no matter how great the company is? To put that price into some perspective, let's take a look at Palantir's journey. Remember how we said it took 22 years to hit that billion-dollar quarter? Here's why that really matters for today's price. That's a longer road than it took a giant like Microsoft, and it's an eternity compared to a company like Alphabet, which got there in just 6 years. Now, of course, every company's path is different, but this long, slow climb makes its current sky-high price tag even harder for skeptics to swallow. So what does that price tag actually look like? Well, you can kind of sum it up with this one number, over 130. Just let that sink in. It's a shocking figure, and it represents what might be the single biggest red flag for this stock. That number, over 130, is the company's price-to-sales ratio. So what on earth does that actually mean? Well, simply put, it means for every single dollar of sales Palantir brings in, investors are willing to pay over $130 for a piece of the company. A premium like that makes it one of the most expensive stocks in the entire S&P 500. For a lot of analysts, that valuation isn't just high, it's in a whole other galaxy.
So how do you possibly reconcile these two powerful forces? On one side, you have unstoppable growth, and on the other, a sky-high valuation. Well, the outlook gets even more complex when we look at the recent deal that has all the bulls so excited.
A huge piece of the bull case is this massive new agreement with the U.S. Army. The headline number is up to $10 billion over 10 years. And on the surface, that sounds like an absolute game changer that basically secures the company's future. But like everything with Palantir, the details really, really matter. And here it is. This is the critical detail everyone needs to understand. That attention-grabbing $10 billion number, it's not a guarantee. It's what's called an enterprise agreement, which basically just sets a spending ceiling. It means the Army now has the option to spend up to that amount over the next decade, but it is not obligated to. The actual money Palantir sees will depend entirely on future orders, which are not guaranteed at all.
So here we are. This is the core dilemma. You have the bulls who see unstoppable momentum, record-breaking performance, and the backing of the world's biggest investors. And then you have the bears, who see a valuation that seems totally disconnected from reality, a long and slow path to get here, and big contracts that are a lot less certain than they look.
Which brings us to our final question. Is Palantir a truly revolutionary company whose potential is just now, finally, being unlocked? Or is it stock caught in a revolutionary bubble, priced for a perfect future that may never fully arrive? That right there is the billion-dollar question every investor has to answer for themselves.